This is KGW News at 5.
Hello and welcome to KGW News at 5 o'clock. Thousands of people are still without power across the state after a record-breaking low-pressure storm rolled in from the Oregon coast on Sunday. Strong winds caused several severe thunderstorm warnings. Our Joe Ranieri joins us live on the coast now. Hi, Joe. What's it like out there right now?
Well, hey there, Laura. We've been seeing a constant stream of sheets of rain earlier today and some windy conditions, but this is the first time all day that we're actually seeing a little bit of some blue skies out there in the distance, and it's been absolutely nasty still here in the last couple of hours. Now, earlier today, we saw dozens of people getting a closer look at the waves as we saw the tail end of this historic storm move to the north. Over the weekend, there was heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, and extremely windy conditions up and down the west coast. Many people who came out to the beach today had never experienced a storm like they saw over the weekend.
It's been crazy. Yeah, the wind shook the area that we were staying at. I checked, there's 30 miles per hour.
Oh, it's like a whiteout. We were able to, like she said, we were at the store, and all of a sudden I just looked outside when I just heard it pounded on the roof, and it just looked outside and it looked like as if it was snowing.
Now, the peak wind gust that I saw from earlier today was out at Garibaldi, just south of us, right around 80 miles per hour. A few locations, though, as Matt was talking at the end of the 4 o'clock, were just a little bit higher than that. Now, despite the heavy winds, there have been no reports of major damage. I did speak to a business owner in Cannon Beach who told me they lost power earlier this morning, but it was restored pretty quickly. He also told me the winds knocked down part of his fence. He did admit some of those posts in his fence were on the loose side, and he knew that fence wouldn't last more than a couple of storms, and it only really lasted just this first one of the season. Reporting live in Seaside this afternoon, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
It has been an impressive storm and always great to see from the coast. Thank you, Joe. And we'll continue our storm team coverage now with Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino. He joins us from the Weather Center. Matt, what can we expect the rest of the day and the week?
Well, it won't be as wild as it was over the weekend and last night with the bomb cyclone. Here's an image of it near its peak. See that 942? That's the central pressure of the storm. That's 942 millibars, which is just a unit of measure of pressure. And that's super low. That is a record for this part of the Pacific Ocean. We've had lower pressure with storms out by the Aleutians and the Central Pacific, but that's a record for this part of the Pacific Ocean, even lower than the great October 12, 1962 storm that is famous here in the Northwest. So that was it there. Here are some of the nuts and bolts on bomb cyclones. The term bombogenesis means the genesis or formation of a bomb cyclone, basically. So you may have heard both of those, bomb cyclone or bombogenesis. And there's an actual definition for what this is. It means that the pressure with the storm has to drop at least 24 millibars in 24 hours. This one, over the weekend, it dropped about 40 millibars in 24 hours, which is just explosive development, which is why they're called bombs. Explosive bomb, that's the connection there. It's been in the meteorological vocabulary for decades, but it's really become popular in the last couple of years. So again, this storm dropped down to 942.5 millibars, record low for the Northeast Pacific, as we talked about. And look what it did. Look at the waves here. Now, this is Tillamook Rocks, about a mile offshore. Jim Young took this picture. The rock's at least 30 feet tall, right? And the waves are breaking that high. Some of the waves were even bigger than that. And the wind gusts, as we talked about, were huge. And this is from the storm, 86 miles an hour on the Long Beach Peninsula at Oysterville. Cape Falcon 80, Newport 82, and even downtown, not downtown, but the Portland Airport, a gust of 43 miles an hour. The waves are still, the swell's still up over 20 feet, but they will be decaying and settling down in the days ahead. So things are going to get back to normal. And there it is. That's the remains of this storm pushing into Vancouver Island and weakening. Laurel.
Sure has made things exciting. Thank you, Matt. People are cleaning up from the storm all across Oregon and Washington. The severity of the damage depends on where you live. Galen Etlin has a look.
This fallen tree in northeast Portland is one of about 20 that Portland Parks and Rec crews are cleaning up after this weekend's storm. Overall, the city says damage is minimal and isolated. But near Milwaukee,
kept our crews busy.
Kimberly Dinwiddie with Clackamas County says some damage is significant. This tree came down on a car on Oatfield Road. Power crews responded to remove wires before the tree could be taken away. Another tree fell on Rusk and Aldercrest roads, also bringing down power lines.
Please do not go around those road closed signs. They are there for your safety.
Up in Kelso, a tree damaged a home garage, but no one got hurt. And this video shows the wild wind and rain bringing down branches in Woodland.
Holy moly!
KGW viewers also sent in photos of trees down in Salem and Vancouver.
It's been a banner year for tree service.
Thomas Atkisson is a landscape architect and owns Clay's Tree Service in Portland. The work is constant.
From February and hasn't stopped.
He says most businesses like his are booked out through the end of the year because of tree growth, February's ice storm, and damage from the summer's heat wave. So he's glad this weekend's bomb cyclone off the coast didn't impact Portland as strongly.
It looked like it was going to be a pretty major event. Luckily, the metropolitan area just didn't get it as much.
This year has been a year of some extreme weather.
Hannah Schaefer with the Portland Bureau of Transportation says despite minimal damage in this storm, a lot of leaves came down this weekend, washing into 58,000 drains around the city.
That's a lot.
Brian Potter with Vancouver's Stormwater Program says his city has about 15,000 drains.
And a lot of that localized flooding that we get on, neighborhood streets and whatnot is a result of the leaves this time of year.
Both cities ask people to help clear drains if safe to do so. So although the storm didn't cause much damage in the Willamette Valley.
So a reminder that winter weather can be severe. So we're asking folks to start preparing now.
Crews are looking ahead to a busy season and asking you to do your part. Galen Etlin, KGW News.
Weather likely played a role in a fire on board a container ship near Victoria, British Columbia. This is the Zim Kingston. It caught fire Saturday morning in rough weather when one or two stacks of containers on the ship collapsed. Columbia River Bar pilot Dan Jordan spent his early career on container ships, and he has a good idea of what likely happened.
If that bottom container gets to moving, we call it racking, from side to side too much, those corner posts can collapse and then the whole stack comes down, which can cause sparks or expose the contents of the container to the elements.
The ship lost 40 containers overboard, which are now moving north parallel to Vancouver Island. The fire on the ship is now smoldering. Jordan said something like this most often happens in rough weather, and he has seen this recent storm up close and personal. This is weekend video of Jordan being lowered to a ship that he was going to pilot from the ocean across the Columbia Bar, but the wind and seas were high, and it took 2 tries to land him safely on the ship. That's pretty harrowing. A big fire over the weekend burned down an old boarded up home that neighbors say was used by squatters. The fire was so hot, it damaged 2 other homes nearby. Tim Gordon reports.
This is the kind of fire that really gets your attention. It certainly got firefighters early Sunday morning.
The crew that was responding to this, the first crew that arrived, they called for a second alarm before they even actually arrived on scene.
About 85 firefighters knew they couldn't save the building on the corner of Southeast 28th and Powell, so they poured water on 2 adjacent homes to save them. Google Maps shows you what the building on the corner used to look like. Built in the early 1900s, in recent years it has deteriorated.
So it's pretty clear to you, even though it was boarded up, that it was being squatters.
Oh yeah, everybody saw people, in there.
Michaela Kennedy lives nearby. She was here when the fire was raging. So was neighbor Denise Kelsch.
I looked out my bedroom window and actually you could see the flames on top.
On Monday, as cleanup crews cleared the sidewalk, the fire still smoldered. And neighbors like Michaela and Denise say this could have been avoided.
It was just horrible. The whole thing is, a lot of people, just not me, we've been calling the city for years about this building, about the possible damage with fire, about the homeless people breaking in.
Buildings that sit empty can pose a bigger threat to firefighters when they burn, according to Portland Fire and Rescue's Terry Foster.
You have an occupancy and people live there, you expect that the stairs are intact, you expect that there aren't holes in the ground, but when there's a boarded up building, it adds a different layer of concern to our firefighters.
And they're not uncommon. A month ago, fire destroyed an abandoned warehouse at Southeast 9th and Alder. Thankfully, crews were not too close as the building collapsed. Back at 28th and Powell, investigators are just getting started on finding a cause for a blaze that did so much damage. And Michaela Kennedy is thinking about priorities.
Who are we going to be a city for? I think that needs to be the real focus. And homeless can be helped, you know, businesses can be helped. We can really help everybody if we focus mainly on safety. If you're being safe, I think, is the biggest key thing.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
We did call the city's Office of Community and Civic Life to ask about those neighbors' complaints about the building. So far, we've not heard back. Almost 2 months into the new school year, the state's weekly COVID testing program for students is still in the process of rolling out. At Portland Public Schools, district officials say the delay is due to supply chain issues. This video was taken at Whitman Elementary at the beginning of this month, when the district started the testing program. At this point, about 3/4 of schools in the district still don't have test kits.
Some of our schools are ready, but because of the supply distribution issues, we are waiting until we get some of those, like labels, coolers. Some of those things have been ordered, they just haven't arrived yet for OHSU. So it's just a matter of supply and demand.
We reached out to OHSU, which is analyzing the tests. A spokesperson said their lab has plenty of capacity, and they are not aware of any supply chain issues, aside from a shortage of labels that may have delayed schools by a few days at most.